There is no Mario without Donkey Kong, as both characters made their debut in 1981, forever changing the video game industry. Even though Mario came out to be Nintendo's golden boy, DK would still get his own games, from Donkey Kong Country, 64, and who could forget Jungle Beat. That said, ever since Tropical Freeze was released in 2014, it seems like Nintendo didn't know what to do with the character aside from a few remasters, a movie appearance, and a theme park. That's good and all, but Donkey Kong fans have been waiting patiently for a new game, and we now have just that on Nintendo Switch 2 with Donkey Kong Bananza, the first 3D game in the series since 64 in 1999. This marks a bold new era for the ape, and who better to handle this game than the Super Mario Odyssey development team at Nintendo EPD. So, was DK's new 3D adventure worth the 11-year wait? We're going to answer that in our brutally honest review, so be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and press that notification bell. The game begins with our hairy protagonist in a place called Ingot Isle, home to Banandium gems, which are essentially crystallized bananas, and we know Donkey Kong can't resist his bananas. While he's searching for them, an evil mining company called Voidco suck up all the Banandium gems to power their meteor ship, pushing Ingot Isle underground. DK, now below the surface, finds a sentient rock being who joins him on his journey and is later revealed to be a young Pauline, who would later grow up to be the mayor of New Donk City in Super Mario Odyssey. Now, the duo must team up to find these Banandium gems throughout multiple sub-layers leading to the Earth's core, and they must take on Voidco using DK's powerful strength and Pauline's magical voice, the latter of which will transform him into various animals. Like most Nintendo platformers, story is not the main focus, but the most endearing part of it all is Pauline's friendship with DK. Although he remains a silent protagonist, Pauline is fully voiced, and during rest stop visits, she will occasionally interrupt DK's nap to discuss their adventure, the current setting, and share personal details about herself. All of these one-sided conversations portray her as a sweet and lovable character, and she has a sweet little moment at the end of the game, which we won't spoil here. All we will say is that the Super Mario Odyssey team really knows how to craft a magnificent climax of epic proportions. Speaking of Odyssey, the gameplay loop of Donkey Kong Bananza is quite similar to it. DK is thrown into a variety of sandbox levels, with Banandium gems scattered about, much like the moons in Mario Odyssey. Fortunately, that's where the comparisons end, because Mario can't punch through just about every piece of terrain in these underground worlds. Donkey Kong's brute strength allows him to dig tunnels and smash structures with his bare fists. He can also pick up terrain to throw at enemies or surf through prickly thorns. He must have taken lessons from Link too, as he can climb most surfaces without a stamina meter. DK's movement is nearly limitless, and the first thing we did upon booting the game up was smash every wall in the first room. It's a fun novelty that quickly grows boring due to its repetitive nature, which is why we don't recommend going straight into digging right away when entering a new stage, at least digging every wall you see. We found it was better to follow the path to get the lay of the land, and if we saw an item of interest, like gold sticking out of the ground, we would go to it and see where it took us. This way of exploring expectedly leads to some distractions from the main story path, as you could start digging frantically for treasure chests and Banandium gems, or you could come across the many challenge courses. These place DK in a pocket universe, with tasks like defeating a group of enemies, surfing down a hazardous slope, and collecting a certain amount of Banandium gems. Though there's only a handful of specific challenge types, they're all made unique with vastly different level layouts and obstacle changes. We were trying to finish this game under a bit of a time crunch to make this review, but that was difficult as we wanted to keep playing these challenge courses whenever we found them. They're just that good, often cleverly implementing the game's physics engine and destructible environments. Some of them make use of DK's new transformations, giving him abilities like increased strength, fast running speed, and temporary flight. They are acquired by visiting Elder Kongs in certain sublayers and bringing back their records, often split into multiple pieces. This will activate a cutscene where Pauline sings a unique song for that power, and they are a blast to watch. As fun as these transformations are, we didn't find much use for all of them outside of their respective sublayers. Only 2 out of the 5 were the most practical for every level, but I'm sure we'll be using each one a lot more once we continue our post-game search for all 777 Banandium gems. Earlier, we compared these to the Power Moons in Super Mario Odyssey, only the gems are more than just collectibles. For every 5 you get, that's 1 point towards DK's skill tree, where you can upgrade his health, strength, and other abilities like the Sonar Clap length and Bananergy level to use those transformations longer. This skill tree is a great incentive to keep searching for those Banandium gems, as these upgrades will be necessary to make the tough final boss more manageable. Collecting these Banandium gems is the main goal in Donkey Kong Bananza, and like in 3D Mario, it is fun. Searching a stage head to toe for these crystallized fruits is a good time, thanks to DK's varied moveset and strength. We just wish the other collectibles were as rewarding, the most common of which are gold, used for buying items at the stuff shop like balloons, and apple juice that heals you upon life depletion. Given that it's hard not to have a bunch of gold on you at all times, it's easy to stock up on these materials, but NPCs will sometimes ask you for gold to bring down blockades or build barrels and rest stops. So while gold is useful in that regard, it's still not as rewarding as the Banandium gems. Oh, and it's used to recharge the transformations, but because they're so common, you'll never not be able to transform. There are also these chips used for the sole purpose of exchanging them for Banandium gems. So they're basically just extra steps to getting Banandium gems. Then there are the fossils, which can be redeemed to buy clothing for DK and Pauline. There's even fur dye, but we couldn't possibly rid Donkey Kong of his glorious brown fur. Each clothing item has its own buff, like swimming faster, resisting poison water, and extending transformation times. Unfortunately, the process of changing into these clothes is cumbersome, as you can't just simply change on the fly while playing. You have to find a closet, which will load into the menu to change clothes, then it will load back into the game. It's not the slowest process, but it could certainly be much faster, like how Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom do it, especially with the Switch 2's increased power and loading speeds. While we're on that subject, let's talk about Donkey Kong Bananza's performance, as the game's director Kazuya Takahashi said before release that there would be frame rate dips during major changes and destruction in the environment. We can confirm that, yes, there are frame rate dips during some intense moments where a lot is happening on screen, most of which come in the latter half of the game. This is rather disappointing for a new game console, and we hope these frame rate hitches are able to be patched out. That said, these are uncommon occurrences that did not ruin our fun, as it still runs at a steady 60 FPS more often than not. Sometimes these technical issues come with developing for a new console, and we will likely see games with much better visuals and performance on Switch 2 in the coming years. Let's move on to enemies, of which there are many. Flying ones, rolling ones you can pick up and throw, and the most common ones are crocoids, crocodile skeletons covered in different terrain. Take out the sand, ground, or rock armor, and they're exposed to a good old-fashioned Donkey Kong beating. The environment can be used against them as well, with our favorite terrain being boom rock that instantly explodes on impact. It's great for excavation too. The most disappointing enemies, however, are the bosses, as the majority of them are way too easy and can be beaten in less than 30 seconds. We're not exaggerating. Some of the best ones are like the crocoids, in that they are made of a certain element that has to be dealt with appropriately, like using the Kong transformation for increased strength against metal. At the very least, most of these weak bosses are in the first half of the game, as the latter half has more interesting ones, especially the last few. Finally, we want to conclude with something that may be no more than a nitpick, but it's a nagging thought we had while playing the first new Donkey Kong game in 11 years. Bananza is great, but at times, it doesn't feel like a Donkey Kong game. Like, if you took these gorgeous levels and swapped DK with Mario, it would make sense as a Mario game 90% of the time. The 10% where it wouldn't make sense would be with the Banandium gems and conversations with the other Kongs. So, Kongversations, I'm sorry. DK games before this had a specific vibe to them, one with more jungles and wilderness. Of course, the forest layer has some of that, but the closest Bananza gets to those original vibes are the nostalgia challenge courses that recreate levels from series past, with musical remixes that are pleasing to the ears. Regardless, the lack of true Donkey Kong vibes or whatever does not detract from Bananza being an amazing game. While it's similar in a lot of ways to Super Mario Odyssey, it plays quite differently with DK's smashing mechanic, animal transformations, and skill tree. It's also a meaty game, taking us about 16 hours to get to the end credits that felt twice as long as Odyssey. And to think this game is $10 cheaper than Mario Kart World, even though it has way more meaningful content. Or should I say, Kong-tent. I'm not sorry. The only elements holding it back from true perfection are the weak boss battles and other collectibles that aren't as useful as the Banandium gems. Now that we're done with this review, we're gonna go back and play some more Donkey Kong Bananza to get all the Banandium gems in its post-game. But before we do that, we have to give this game a high score of 93 out of 100. It is currently the best Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive so far. Thank you for watching until the very end. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe, and press that notification bell to stay updated on future Brutally Honest reviews. We'd also like to thank our patreon.com/commonrealm patrons. Special shoutouts go to Royal Producer JC Funk and heroes Cheryl, Garrett Hoy, Holly Wolf, and Kintaro. You all rock, and please enjoy one or both of these two awesome videos.